Hi everyone, what's up? Chelsea fans, I hope you're all feeling good. This is Xavier Mbuyamba, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast. Enjoy.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, I am pleased to welcome this individual on the podcast today. This individual made 101 appearances for the club, scoring 3 goals. Plus, he played with the likes of Gary Chivers, John Bumstead and Clive Walker. Here is Chris Hutchings. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Just, enjoying life at the moment, but I'm keeping well. Thank you.
Good. Chris, I'd like you to take us back from the very start of your footballing journey. Who or what in particular influenced you to become a professional footballer?
Well, I was a big Jimmy Greaves fan. He was a goal scorer, and I love goal scorers in the day. And, I used to follow him avidly. And obviously, at that time, supported Tottenham, which doesn't go down too well with Chelsea fans. But, he was the hero who I type of followed. And I suppose probably guided me in the way to be doing what I did. And very, very fortunate enough to do what I've done. I never thought it as a job. It was something that I was very privileged and lucky to do.
For those listeners that perhaps didn't see Jimmy Greaves play live, what kind of striker was he? Was he a sort of target man, or was he more of a fox in the box, for instance?
Well, I think that fox in the box was Jimmy Greaves. You know, he had an uncanny knack of being in the right place at the right time. And he always used to seem to stroke the ball home. He never used to sort of lash it or smash it. Shearer used to smash it in. But Jimmy always, I don't know what it was. He just had that knack of being there. And sometimes you can't coach that. It's something that you're given, and you're lucky to have it and make a living out of it.
Now, Chris, you signed for Chelsea in July of 1980 from Harrow Borough for £5,000. Just explain to us, how did this move come about?
Well, I'll take it back a couple of years prior to that, because I was apprentice at Southend, and then I signed pro for a year. And the manager there was a great man who's sadly not with us now, called Arthur Rowley, a fantastic goal scorer in his day. And I was halfway through the season when I was a pro. Not basically getting anywhere, playing in the reserves, not getting a sniff of the first team. And the previous year, a few of my mates had gone up to Southall and Ealing Borough and playing part-time. And they seemed to be enjoying it, having a good time, earning a couple of bob. I thought, well, I'm going to go and do that. So I went to see Arthur. We come to an agreement, mutual agreement, had my contract terminated. And I went and played part-time and the manager at the time was Jeff Taylor, who was a big Harry Bassett man. And had worked with Harry, throughout his later career. So I played there for a season or so, well, just over a season, maybe 2 seasons, and then got transferred to Harrow Borough. Now, Harrow Borough, Mike Tompkins was the manager, and it was fantastic facilities at that football club. The ground was immaculate, the pitch was fantastic, and that's why we used to play QPR, Fulham, Tottenham, Chelsea, Brentford. All them teams wanted to come and have a pre-season game with us. So I was lucky enough we were playing Tottenham in a friendly this particular night. And Jeff Hurst was the manager at Chelsea with Bobby Gould. And I think my name had been mentioned a couple of times by the scout to them. So obviously it was an opportunity to come and watch the likes of John Lacey, Mark Falco, Hazard played. All of them boys, John Pratt played. I think Stevie Perryman played. So it was a bit of a mixture of the first team and reserves of Tottenham at the time. And they come down to watch a few of their players. I did particularly well this game. And then they watched me, I think, 3 games after that. And then they took a punt, with an almighty £5,000 bid that secured me. I was very, very fortunate to get a second bite of the cherry. But in the meantime, when I was playing part-time, I went to college and went on the trail, become a bricklayer, was working on the building site. So that allowed me to get to games of the evening, finish about 3 o'clock. get to games, etc., etc. So I knew what it was like to work. So when this opportunity came along, I mean, I signed for Chelsea for less money than what I was working and getting paid for football. But it was the opportunity that I could never, ever turn down at a club like Chelsea. And, I was very fortunate to get a second bite of the cherry. And I was never going to fail then for the lack of effort, dedication, preparation, whatever it might be. And obviously, the higher you go, the more ability you have, et cetera, et cetera. But I was never going to fail for the lack of effort and dedication. And that's what, pushed me forward. I can remember first pre-season, I'd be running my socks off and the other boys, older pros, would be saying, hey, Hutch, hold on a minute, steady, like we've got another 3 of these to do. But for me, I was giving my all each and every day. And that got me through my career as such. So very fortunate to get a second bite of the cherry. And then obviously it went on from there.
What was your first day of training like with the first team?
Well, it was strange because I'd dislocated my shoulder at the end of the previous season. So obviously the medical staff had to make sure my shoulder was all right and all this type of thing. So for about the first month there, I had to avoid any contact with the shoulder just to let it settle down and then do obviously my strengthening exercises after training, et cetera, et cetera. But once I got into it, I can always remember there was Alan Hudson, who was my hero there at Chelsea, Colin Viljohns, Mickey Droys, Clive Walkers, there was some Mickey Fillery, Chiv Bunners, there's some very, very good players, Conin Lee, and I'm thinking, wow, this is for real now and you've got to embrace it and enjoy it. And I went to training to enjoy every day.
You've briefly mentioned Geoff Hurst, who came to see you play against that Spurs 11. What were your thoughts on Geoff Hurst as a coach?
Well, yeah, I mean, Geoff was very quiet, methodical, knew what he wanted to do. But to be quite honest, he'd scored a hat-trick in the World Cup final. So if Geoff said jump, I was going to jump. If it was good enough, you don't get any higher esteem than that, Keith, of the pinnacle of your career, you're scoring a World Cup final, and not only once, but 3 times. Fantastic achievement. And Bobby was a little bit more of a laugher and joker. We had a great bit of fun with Bobby all the time. But yeah, they gelled well together.
Now, you made your Chelsea debut in October of 1980. Do you remember who that was against?
Yes, I know it was against Cardiff. We played away. And prior to that, I've been playing in the reserves. I'm not sure whether it was 1 or 2 subs at that particular time. Might have been just 1 sub. And I'd played particularly well these previous 3 or 4 reserve games. And on away games, Geoff used to try to involve one of the reserves to go along and be involved with it, get a little bit of experience, all them type of things. And it was my turn. I played well, I go along. And after 20 minutes, Mickey Fillery gets injured. So, Geoff says, go on, quick, get warmed up quick, and on you go. So, and I've got it on video somewhere, the goal. I've got it.
Yes, because you scored on your debut. Exactly.
Went down the left, crossed it, and I was about 6 yards out, and I just coolly side-footed in. And I can remember I had a goal disallowed. I had a 25-yard shot that flew in the top corner, and I think Clive might have been offside for it. So, but yeah, I mean, very, very fortunate. And then that was the springboard of your career, your confidence that grew, and it went on from there. I mean, I was a midfield player at that particular time. And then when John Neal came in, he put me to left back, and I played left back quite a bit.
I'd like to talk about John Neal if I can. He took over the manager's role in the summer of 1981. What was different about John Neal's coaching approach to that of Geoff Hurst?
Well, John was a very quiet man, and Ian McNeil was his right-hand man. And they were both reasonably quiet, but, putting out what they wanted to, within the team plan, the formation. But formations then were normally 4-4-2. There was never, 4-3-2-1 or 2, and, all that type of thing. It was pretty bog standard. And players knew their jobs. And like I say, it was a strange sign, because then he brought Joey Jones in, and it was me and Joey for left back, although Joey started at right back, and then we all moved on from there.
You did become more of a regular for the Chelsea side in the 81-82 season. This must have been a huge confidence boost for you and your development as a player.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that goes without saying. It breeds confidence, and the more you play, the more confident you get. And we were winning matches and doing reasonably well in the leagues and that. So, it was quite good. I can always remember, though, that Alan Hudson was always a role model to me when he was at the football ground, because he'd be one of the first in, and he'd always say, "Come on, Chrissy, let's go and play keepy-ups. Just play donkey, we keep up, flicking it here, there and everywhere." And then us two become 3 or 4, and then it becomes 6 or 8, and others joined in. And I'd always remember him coming short for a ball one time, and I hit it long up to the striker. And and this is the moment when I grew up at Chelsea, I feel, is that he said, "Hey, come on, give me the ball, Chrissy, give me the ball." And it might have been in a reserve match, I think. And I says, "Look, the manager wants me to hit it long, so if I don't hit it long, I'm not going to get in the side." And he come over to me and he patted me on the back. He said, "Okay, I understand." And that was the moment I felt, because he was my hero. I would never want to argue with him or disagree with him in any shape or form. But that was the grow-up time for me of, oh, you've arrived, and other people can see what you're doing and accept it, although it wasn't his way. So, that was a big turning point in the career of, come on, let's kick on now and see what we can do.
That particular moment with Alan Hudson, that must have helped you not only as a player, but also later on when you went into coaching, that ability to provide the right guidance to young players.
Definitely. I mean, all these are experiences that you take on, throughout your career, whether it be playing or coaching. And there have been circumstances, that have cropped up like that, and I can relate to instantly and thinking, you're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So it's all part of experience and learning. Sometimes you get it wrong, but you hope to get more right than wrong.
One game that stands out this particular campaign was the FA Cup 5th round win over Liverpool, which you played in. Chelsea won the game 2-0. Let's just put it into context though. Chelsea were in the 2nd division and Liverpool won the European Cup the previous season. Do you have any particular memories of this game, and what was the Stamford Bridge crowd like on this particular day?
The first thing I'm going to tell you is quite unbelievable, because I was on my way, on the way to the ground, and the traffic was horrendous. And I'm looking at my clock. I'm clock watching to be in at a certain time, obviously. So, and the traffic was not moving. So I think I'm just going to have to park my car here and run down the way. So I parked my car. Right, this is true. I must have had 3/4 of a mile to go. And I'm running down the road, running past all these fans. I've got my soap bag in my hand. I'm in my suit, tie, collar, and all this type of thing. I just get there in time, for team talk and all that. And I've parked my car. I'm thinking it might be towed away by the time I get back, because I just think I've got to leave this to get there. So from then we go on to the game, and what a game, what an atmosphere. I mean, them being champions at that particular time, fantastic result. I think Rhodesy scored, Peter Rhodes-Brown, and was it Colin Lee who scored?
That's right, yes.
I think it was, yeah. And so that was a massive, massive result for us against the champions who had everybody playing at that particular time, and probably a major shock. And the other one that stands out was a Tottenham game that we had. It was another cup game. I don't know if you can remember that one. 3-2 defeat. We got beat 3-2. We were leading. I think we went 1-0 up at just before half time. And it was Ozzy LD, Les Oddle, and, all the boys were out, and Villa and people like that. And we got beat 3-2 in the end. And I know Glenn Hoddle scored. He took from outside the box. He just smashed it low, and I went to close him down, and it just whizzed by me and into the far corner. We got beat 3-2. But again, the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge was unbelievable. And you've got to remember that we had the running track around it, the dog track around it. Yeah. So the fans were even further away. But the shed was unbelievable, and great days, something that I'll never forget.
On the topic of the FA Cup, how do you value the competition personally, Chris? And do you believe that the FA Cup is still the best competition in this country? Oh,
without doubt. Without doubt. I mean, I know teams, chop and change players for cups these days. And I can understand it to a certain degree, but as a player, I would always want to play in the FA Cup, and I'd always want to try and get to the final, because that they arguably are the pinnacles of your career, and that's in history. You know what I mean? It's cemented in history. So it's a shame that teams do devalue it to a certain degree at times, but I can also understand them. If they're in Champions League, for example, and they've got that, a couple of games coming up and rotating players, I do understand that way as well.
The next season, Chelsea signed in the summer 2 players, 2 names that haven't been mentioned too much on this podcast, in David Speedie and Nigel Spackman. Chris, in your opinion, what did these 2 bring to the team that was perhaps lacking at that time?
Well, David Speedie brought aggression. He was only 5'6", 5'7", but what a good player. What a fantastic leap he had. He was fantastic in the air, and you'd never think he'd win as many headers as what he did, and little flick-ons. And he was so tenacious that was effective, and it rubbed off on other players. I'd have numerous arguments with him, but I mean, that was him. He wanted to win it all the time. We all did. Nigel come in and influenced the team in a different way. He was much calmer. Went about his business. Obviously, if he wasn't doing your job, he'd get onto you as well. But both very, very good players, and probably helped transform the team at that particular time. As every team needs a little bit of refreshing, shall we say, at times. But they were the right guys to come in and help that, in abundance.
Now, you was a constant feature down the left-hand side for Chelsea. What did you prefer, left back or left midfield?
I probably found it easier playing at left back because everything was in front of me, and you can see a bigger picture. Where obviously you're pushed up one or in more centrally, you've got to be much more aware of what's going on around you. But yeah, I found left back easier for me with everything in front of me. And I was pretty good. I had 2 good feet, to be quite honest. I could hit it left foot, I could hit it right foot. And people used to say, well, I'm not sure whether you're left footed or right footed. So that was a big advantage to me. So I could cut inside and I could whip crosses in, after going down the line and things like that. But I could also get to the byline and pull it back with decent crosses with my left foot. So I'd probably say that left back was because that's where I finished off and played the remainder of my career.
The 82-83 season, Chelsea were nearly relegated to the 3rd division as it was. They managed to stay up 2 points above the drop zone. Chris, why, in your opinion, was Chelsea so inconsistent during the time in the early 80s?
I don't know, really. I mean, we had good players. For some reason, it didn't work, or players had loss of form throughout that particular season. Games that you arguably should have won and didn't win or drew. It's just an inconsistent season, I think. Did we play Bolton at Bolton late on in that year and we drew 2-2 or we won?
It was 1-0 with Clive Walker scoring the goal.
Was it Clive Walker who scored?
Yes, it was.
Right. I was going to say, I thought I could remember that game and or vaguely remember that game, that was a big turning point of surviving, I think, of that game, of staying in the league. But yeah, it wasn't good times. As when you're getting beat, you don't like to, especially with a club like Chelsea, because you're expected to do so much more.
I mean, as you say, the players we had in the Chelsea side, they weren't poor players. The likes of Colin Pates, Clive Walker, Mike Fillery, Gary Chivers, Paul Canaville, just to name a few.
All very, very good players. Very good players. Mickey Fillery, Anna's, Paul, very, very good players. But for some unknown reason, I mean, I always just think Mickey Fillery should have done so much better with the ability he had. But he did all right, don't get me wrong. But I felt that he could have gone on to bigger and better things, to be quite honest. But it didn't happen for whatever reason. But yeah, just Paul Canaville, another one, really quick, really skillful. And arguably sometimes Walks was the same. If them players go missing and they're the players that can actually open up teams that aren't doing it, whether they're closely marked or they're totally off their game for whatever reason, you miss them big time. And you need your best players. I can hardly talk about England. You need your best players. A bit of magic from someone that opens up the door, and that's the difference.
You was in and out of the team in the beginning of the 1983-84 season, Did you have a conversation with John Neal about this? And did he know about your frustrations because of the lack of first team football, knowing that the previous 2 seasons you was a regular starter for Chelsea?
Yeah, I think that's when Joey came as well. And Joey Jones came. And I can remember we played up at Blackburn and I cut my head right across my forehead and at half time, about 6-7 stitches in it. Went out and played, obviously. And then I think that might have been on a Tuesday night or something like that. And then on the Saturday, I wasn't in the team. And that excuse was, oh, you've cut your head. And I said, no, I'm prepared to play. But I think he wanted to swap, because I was at left back. Joey was at right back, I think, at that particular time. And then he wanted to put Joey at left back. I can't remember who was at right. It might have been Lockie. Gary Locke might have been still there. Right. He'd been at the to play at right back, right. I think. So, yeah, I was frustrated and annoyed at that because I was willing to play, even with a bit of a bandage on my head. But that was the circumstances. I become frustrated. And then, I didn't want to play because I'd been a regular for a couple of seasons. I didn't want to play in the reserves. And, I wanted to, prove that I could play, in the first team again.
Yeah. You ended up leaving Chelsea to join Brighton for £50,000 in November of that year. Was this move orchestrated by yourself, or was it down to the club?
No, I think I played for Chelsea at Gillingham in a cup game, and Chris Catlin had come to watch that game, who was manager at the time at Brighton. Obviously liked what he saw, and they put a bid in for me. But it was strange circumstances because I played Chelsea against Brighton, down at Brighton, and then the fans come on, and there was a big ballyhoo about that, where the ground started getting wrecked, and they was on the pitch, and I was supposed to have been inciting a riot, which couldn't have been further from the truth. I mean, I was coming off the pitch after we won. I think we either won 1-0 or 2-0 down at the old Brighton ground. And I always used to clap the fans, win or lose. That was always a thing that I respected, and to respect them spending their hard-earned money to travel and come and watch games. And I was walking to where our fans were, and there was a policeman probably, I don't know, maybe 5 yards away. He was on the dirt track. I was just 4 or 5 yards on the pitch. And I was clapping the fans, and he went, come on, get off. Get off. And I was standing there clapping, and he said, hey, come on, get off, get off, get off. And I just turned around and said, oh, bleep off. So you can imagine what I said. And I jogged off and went down the tunnel. And then from that point on, there was all the fans come onto the pitch, and then on the crossbar and the bars and all that. And a few of the Brighton supporters that were in there at the time obviously had heard this and probably said, oh, yeah, inciting a riot, do this, do that. So a week later, I was at the train at the ground, and the police come, and John Neal called me in and said, well, what's been going on? Where are you going? And then, obviously, Brighton coming in for me. I'm thinking, wow, what do I do now? What the fans going to think of me coming down there? But it was the gamble I took, and I wanted to play first-team football.
So you earned yourself a bit of a reputation from that then?
Yeah, a little bit, unfortunately, yeah, but there we go.
Before we talk about current events, you also enhanced your footballing profile as a coach, working with a number of clubs, both as an assistant and as a first-team manager. Was there any possibility of you returning to Chelsea as a coach, or was that more hearsay and rumours? No,
that must have been hearsay. I mean, at the time I was working with Paul Jewell. I ended up playing at Rotherham, and then I went on the coaching scene at Rotherham with Phil Henson and John Breckin. And then Chris Kamara got the job at Bradford, and he asked me, Bobby Davison had played at Rotherham, and Chris knew Bobby, and he asked Bobby about me. He said, oh, yeah, good coach, blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, right, I'll take him to come and do the reserves. So I went to do the reserves. Then I was working with the first team, and then Chris got the sack at Bradford. So the chairman had asked Paul then to take over as an interim manager. But he said to me, I want you to work with me, because obviously Paul would just still finishing playing, in that little bit of a role. So he wanted me to come in and take the coaching and that, which I did. And then, Paul got the job. He wanted me to become his full-time assistant. And we were very, very fortunate to get 2 or 3 promotions, get to the Premiership, survive in the Premiership, which is, an unbelievable feat. Mm-hmm. And then Paul moved on, I think went to Sheffield Wednesday. I was asked if I would like to take over the job. And it's an opportunity that you can't give up, as you might always regret. But going into that job, I knew that we'd be in the bottom 3 budgets. I knew that we'd be down the bottom struggling, but it was a chance I was willing to take. And the same happened at Wigan. Paul went to Sheffield Wednesday, didn't get on so great at Sheffield Wednesday, went to Wigan, wanted me to go to Wigan with him. Again, we did the same thing, went through promotions. We got to a cup final, a Carling Cup final against Man United, got to the Premiership, survived in the Premiership. So some people, if you do it once, some people say, it could be lucky. But we did it on numerous occasions. So we had a formula that somehow worked. And as a team, Paul and myself worked very well together. And then, we'd gone to Derby, we'd gone to Ipswich. And in between that, I'd managed, at Walsall for a couple of years and helped out at Market Drayton. A friend who went to Market Drayton asked me to come down and do a few sessions, and same at Shrewsbury. Ended up the last coaching was at Barnsley with Danny Wilson. So that was good because it was right on my doorstep. I lived at a place called Holmfirth, which is just the other side of Huddersfield. So it was nice to be at home instead of being at Ipswich or Derby or Wigan, and travelling, and et cetera, et cetera. So very fortunate to have been successful in what we've done. But you never seem to gloat about it. You just, that's for other people to say, you done well.
Yeah, of course. One game I did want to discuss with you about was Wigan's first Premier League game. It was on the 14th of August 2005. Wigan played host to Chelsea, who at the time were Premier League champions. They won the league the previous season. You yourself, you're back in the Premier League as a coach with Paul Jewell, and you turn to your right and you see a different Chelsea with multi-million-pound players on the bench, let alone starting, and you see Jose Mourinho in the dugout. What was that whole day's experience like for you?
Well, it's probably the week leading up to it. You've had your pre-season and you're building up to it. You've had your pre-season games. You've been away trying to gel all the players together, having pre-season games and trying different formations and setups. But the whole week then is obviously, preparing. And I can always remember Jose's, he come to us and just said, we didn't deserve to win. Sorry, lads, because Crespo scored last minute. Yeah. Fantastic goal, from corner of the box into the far corner, left foot, trademark Crespo goal, isn't it? And you're thinking, oh, wow. But to have taken them so close was a massive confidence booster, because we all know at the time, if you're playing Liverpool, Man U, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's what you're fearing in the back of your mind. And obviously you go into a game plan that we're thinking, right, let's keep it quite tight, for the first 45 minutes. We did the same at Arsenal, Man U, let's not give an early goal, otherwise I think the floodgates could open here. So you get to half time, and then as time goes on, you grow into the game, and then it becomes a little bit more stretched. They want to win, we want to win, because you can go a little bit gung-ho. And then they do that. It's heartbreaking stuff, But we took a lot of credit from that moving forward into that season. So it was a great learning curve. Very disappointing to lose. But and funny as it seems, like I got the sack at Wigan and we played Chelsea that day. I got the sack when we got beat. I think it was.
I seem to remember, I think Chelsea won the game 2-0. It was back in 2007.
I'm just speaking about is that we go, we're thinking you have targets, you've got to get the right first 20 minutes, keep it tight. Don't be elaborate. Don't stretch the game. You get to half time and think, right, great, done this, done that. Then at half time, if you're getting beat 1-0, you're thinking, well, we've got to have a little bit more of a go now. As I said, you don't want to get beat 6, 7, 8, which these teams can readily and easily do. And then I got the sack, and we actually got clapped off the pitch at Wigan for the way we performed in the second half, although we lost 2-0. And I got the sack for that. And I'm thinking, well, I'd have got the sack if we'd have got beat 7-8-0, that's for sure. Having a right go and thinking, well, what was your game plan? So I was a little bit miffed at Wigan at that particular time. But that was their decision, and, you have to abide by decisions and what the chairman says.
The crazy world of football management, eh?
Exactly.
Chris, just a few more questions before we do go. I want to get your thoughts on VAR. I've asked this question to all my previous guests. So, Chris, what's your opinion of VAR, please?
Well, it's minute, isn't it? It's minute but huge at the same time. You know, what do you agree with? What don't you agree with? I disagree with stopping the game for the amount of time that they do. But at the same time, you want it to be clear-cut because we're all human. We all make mistakes. And let's be honest, you know, you're watching VAR and it's like you can watch it 3 or 4 times and still not be 100% sure. And as a referee, which is a really, really hard job to do, it's so difficult to get them decisions 100% right all the time. The biggest thing for me is that when somebody's attacking and they're offside and they let it roll and roll and roll and roll on, and then it's called back, I'm thinking, you're offside, just stick the flag up. Why don't they do that? I don't understand that, because at some stage there will be a bad injury through letting that carry on, because they know it's offside and you're just pulling it back. I don't understand that, the meaning of what they're trying to get by letting it roll and then bringing it back. Probably 5 seconds, could be 10 seconds, 15 seconds later. I just think surely it's for the safety of the players that you have to think, you know, the safety issue basically of why, you know, it's a free, if it's offside, whistle, it's done, dusted, no arguments, that's how it is. But to let it roll on and on and on frustrates the life out of me. Everybody's opinion's different, isn't it? You know what I mean? We could all see the same thing, but have a totally different view on it. So you'd always need 3 people or 5 people and go with the majority, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But then you're still not gonna please everybody. So it's a fine line of judgment that you have to come up with. And I always think that you're always going to have this, aren't we? I mean, cricket's, they show the cricket, the bows go off, it's out. You know, it's so. I'm not sure how it can. Whether you'd stop it would be a good thing, but you might be able to modify it. But in which way and how, I'm not sure how you'd go about it. To be quite honest with you.
I think we will leave it there in terms of VAR because I think we'll be here all day. Chris, what are your thoughts on present-day Chelsea?
Well, Tuchel's done a fantastic job, no doubt about that, in Chelsea becoming European champions. But I think we mustn't underestimate the job that Frank did. With the youngsters, the Mounts, and all these type of people coming through. He must take a hell of a lot of credit for that work. And a lot of people would say, well, it's a little bit unjust that he got the sack, but at the same time, he had spent money, which will always be thrown at him. But it takes time to develop. Tuchel's brought back, shall we say, some of the more experienced players into the side, which has been a big factor. Now, whether Frank was rotating them on a more regular basis and they didn't like that, I don't know. Where now they might be playing a lot more that they're happy with. There's lots of little situations that you don't know what goes on behind the scenes regarding them situations, or may have fell out with Frank or whatever. You know what I mean? Who knows? And so, but going on to today, yeah, I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with again, aren't they? And if they're looking to buy, a striker, which they seem to be linked with a lot of the time, it only bodes well for the future because. It'd be interesting to see whether Liverpool can come back again. Man City, you expect them to be in there, and if they get Kane, which they're all talking about, I think that would be a massive plus for them, and probably make it even harder. But you take your hat off to where they are, and it's a magnificent achievement, and they deserve all the credit that they can get.
Just finally, Chris, how do you look back on your time at Chelsea?
With fond memories. Like I said to you, I went to there on less money than what I was when I was playing football and working for a living. I knew what it was to work, and I never felt it was like work. So, for a club like Chelsea to come and ask you to play for them and then, be relatively successful in playing for them, nearly 100 games, whatever it is, nothing but fond memories and great times. I think I've been invited down, I think it's next May, to a reunion of that era of players going down. So I shall probably go down to that. I've got to get back in touch with the people to say about that. So that'll be nice to see the Pateses, Bunners and people like that again. Joey Jones, a few others. So I'm sure that'll be a good night. But fantastic club, fantastic people who worked with behind the scenes as well. And all the players, fond memories of them.
Brilliant. Well, Chris, I appreciate your time coming on to the Blue Day podcast today. So thank you very much.
Cheers, Keith. Really enjoyed it. Thanks very much, pal.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.